From HYPEBEAST Radio, I'm Jeff Staple, and this is The Business of Hype, a show about creative entrepreneurs, brand builders, innovators, and the realities behind the dreams they've built. Hey everyone, welcome to a very special episode of The Business of Hype. Every so often, I like to conduct live podcast tapings in front of an actual studio audience. The live audience actually changes the dynamic of the conversation that me and my guests have, and I love it. It almost has like a comedy club feel, if you know what I mean. And so today, I gathered 3 amazingly talented people and 1 alumni of The Business of Hype. The location? Soho, New York City, in the beautiful Cole Haan flagship store. Cole Haan was gracious enough to allow us to take over their store and create a really cool vibe over a beautiful summer evening. The topic? Work for what you believe in. And I put work in quotes because work is not just what you do anymore. It's actually who you are. People may be more motivated than ever, but they're more burnt out too. What if we stopped relying on escapism and other distractions to avoid burnout, and instead made a mindset and lifestyle shift to address the problem at the core, figuring out what you wanted to do all the time? Working for what you believe in is also Cole Haan's unique point of view on the realities of being a young professional in the ever-evolving workplace. They celebrate extraordinary people who are already working for what they believe in, something that is a through line in all the guests I try to bring on the show. And our guests this week all represent this to the fullest, but all in their own unique way. They have all had their own grand beginnings and have hustled their way to the top within their respective industries. Mike Cherman, founder of Chinatown Market, is redefining in real time what streetwear means today. His renegade team and equally renegade collaborations are setting new standards in the industry. Jeanne Gray of Gray Layers is a social media and content maven that quit nursing and defied her parents' wishes to pursue her dreams. And when she was paid $10 to post something over 6 years ago, she knew she was onto something really big. Finally, Patt is an accomplished artist and the chief creative officer of Cole Haan. He talks about a shift from the medical industry to Armani to leading the design efforts at Cole Haan today. So everyone tune in, grab some popcorn, and join our studio audience as I present this live episode of The Business of Hype with Mike Cherman, Jeanne Gray, and Patt.
So, before we get too far into it, I'd like for my esteemed panel to introduce themselves. Do you want to start, Mike?
Yeah. What's going on, guys? I'm Mike Cherman from Chinatown Market.
Hi, guys. I'm Jeanne from Gray Layers.
Hi, I'm Patt. I work as the Chief Creative Officer for Cole Haan and also a visual artist.
Cool. The reason why I like this particular discussion is you guys all came up through lots of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears experience, but you are all executing it on a different level and a different aspect. So from, we can dive in deeper on each of your companies, but Scott, I've known you for decades now, working artist, but gone through a lot of experience through companies, corporate America, and like really making your artwork come through on a mass level and being able to distribute it globally. Seeing your work, from an art gallery all the way to retail all over the world is one unique way. Mike, I don't even know where to begin with your story. We'll get into it, but what you've been able to do today, which to me is sort of like the newest iteration of what street culture is. It's like redefining it as we're going. You're sort of writing the playbook as it unfolds in live time.
Thank you.
Yeah, is also really cool, especially from where you came from and like some of the experiences that you went through. And then Jeanne, I think you really represent the new way of storytelling everything. So creating a product, not necessarily a product that is to be sold like Scott or Mike do, but being able to create a product through storytelling purely is really unique as well. So I don't want to tell your stories. Like, let's go down and talk about like briefly how you founded the company and where you are today with it.
Yeah, so before doing Chinatown Market, I had a brand called ICNY. It was all running in cycling gear, kind of all focused around the idea of keeping you safe while you run and ride, but also making something that you could wear during the day. Moderately successful brand in probably 300 plus stores, multi-million-dollar business, and had the classic story of having an investor kind of, having the rug pulled out and essentially being told one day that it's over. And so after that, kind of had a probably nice inflection point and, just not knowing what the hell I was going to do, just being super scared and just freaking out, and moved to California with a bunch of debt, ended up having the opportunity to get a free booth for ComplexCon, showed up with 5 t-shirts and 5 hats, and sold one of them out that was just like an interesting design that had the word Frank Ocean and the Nike swoosh smashed together when Frank had his album come out. And it was just like a moment where, while that was a really illegal thing to do, it was like a really eye-opening kind of night as I was driving my girlfriend Ashley home from ComplexCon, and she was going back to New York, and I was just like, I'm going to buy the website swooshfrankocean.com. And the next day we put it up online. It did $50,000 in sales in less than 24 hours. And after that, obviously, I got a trademark infringement from Frank's team. I returned all the money. But I had a moment where I was just like, if I can pull these things from pop culture and smash them together and present it to the people in a rapid moment, I have an opportunity to do something that a lot of people can't do. And with the ability to design, understand how to make things, I took those 2 skills and kind of smashed them together to be able to birth what Chinatown Market is today, which is, it's an interesting approach to what streetwear is. It's definitely an amalgamation of like all these different things that we know and have loved, and also the new trends and new things that we see, and kind of constantly innovating and building upon that.
I have one follow-up question. From a business standpoint, are you doing better at Chinatown Market than you've ever done at ICNY?
I'd say wholeheartedly yes, and also probably coming from a little bit more of a failure standpoint of being young and thinking that an investor and having money is going to change my business, when probably understanding what it took to do all the business and going through that failure and learning that I had to really be involved with everything, not just being a designer. And I think that it's like it's easy to be a designer, but it's very hard to run a business. And so now I'm very deep into thinking about all these things. Well, sure, I'm very much still focused on creativity. It's like I still very much consider the business, and it's a big focus in everything that we do, because we can go make whatever the hell we want. I can go make the craziest shit in the world, but does that mean that the consumer is going to care about it? And many designers in our world design 80% for them, 20% for the people, but I want to do it the opposite way. I want to consider the consumer who is looking at our stuff all day and wants to interact with us, and I want to pull back the curtain and be inclusive, not exclusive. And I think that it's got to be the opposite. It's have to be, I'm grateful you're giving me your money for the things that I've put my mind into creating, and I should be grateful to you, and I want to give you as much of an experience as possible. And these things will eventually lose its luster in a sense. So
okay.
Wow.
That was really good.
That was really good.
thank you. Sorry.
All right, Jeanne, your turn.
So the question was how I started.
Yeah, how did you start?
Okay, well, I was in college, and everybody was on social media. Nobody knew what the hell it was. And I was in school for nursing. Hated it. My mom, wanted me to be a nurse. That was the only way. That was it for me. And I just didn't want to do it. And while I was there, I tried to find a creative outlet of some sort. And I would always go on Tumblr, Pinterest, Facebook. Did not have an Instagram back then. And somebody decided to make a fake Instagram account of me and take all of my photos and everything I made. And
It was probably Mike.
Probably, yeah. Right. And the whole goal was really to just get more followers than whoever that person was. And, because I hated what I was in school for, it was fun. It was like something creative. It was an outlet of some sort. So I was doing that. And so I got the followers, whatever. And I decided to, find jobs while I was in school. Okay. I was moved out. My parents didn't want to have anything to do with what I was doing. So had to get a job. Got 2 jobs and kept getting fired. I was in the other spectrum of things. So I was in marketing at that time. And doing marketing for other companies while doing my blog was a no-no back then. Yep. So that was 7 years ago. Now, if you have a blog, people will hire you right off the bat. People will be like, wow, you know all this stuff. You know social media, you know marketing, you know PR, like, we'll hire you. but back then I kept getting fired for it. So my boyfriend at that time, now my husband, he said, why don't you just not work for anybody? Why don't you try and figure out if this really would work? So the first gig I got was a $10 payment for a t-shirt. And I was like, if I do a couple hundred of these $10 t-shirt posts.
Wait, to post a t-shirt?
To post a t-shirt and get the t-shirt for free. And I was so psyched about it.
You were like, wow, if I do 10,000 of these.
Right. I was like, I can make a killing, so why not? Like, I'll do it. So $10, I was so psyched. And it was the most exciting thing. We did this whole production for this one little t-shirt company. And I was just so excited. And it just kind of, that was it. Like, there was no blueprint for it. So we were just trying to make our way, try to figure out like what social media was, like what is this newfound industry? Like we don't really know anything about it.
Right.
And on the other side of things, brands also didn't know much about it. So they were kind of like, oh, like you want to work with us? Like what is this situation you want us to do? Like how does this work? What is the blueprint?
I think the two of you have that in common where like you go into meetings and they're like, how does this work? Can you tell us how this works?
And I think today still, people are still like trying to figure it out. It's still such a new industry that like, you know, on both ends, like as a brand and, you know, as an entrepreneur, like we are trying to still mesh and figure out how to work together.
Right, okay. Scott, you're up.
I think mine's a bit more traditional. And I'm the elder on the panel. No, I think the thing we have in common, though, is that entrepreneurism. I mean, I originally went to, I'll make this a short because it's a long story because I got a lot of years. I went to school, I originally thought I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. So I studied exercise and sports science at Penn State. And after about 2 years in that, my brother was an architect, got really inspired by what he did. I got into design and just absolutely fell in love with that. Called my parents, told them I wasn't going to be a doctor, and that worked well. And eventually, actually, first job was in New York City. I worked in fashion for Giorgio Armani and in visuals. So I did window displays, those types of things. And I got recruited out to Nike. So I worked with Nike for about 14 different years in different capacities. I was there in team sports, you know, grew up watching a lot of sports and was kind of a fiend for it, still am. And evolved over into their brand group. And when I was in their brand group, that was the time that, you know, just some of the legends, Sergio Lozano, Bob Mervar, designing the Presto, that time I got just really hyped on footwear. And so that's kind of where my, you know, that background of exercise and sports science kind of came into footwear. And I studied graphic design and painting. So I didn't have a background in industrial design, so I think kind of that same kind of earn it mentality. And so I hustled nights and weekends and would, you know, show up in the cross-training group with designs and, you know, I'd make molds of, I didn't know what a last was, so I'd like mold my foot and build models on that and then hustle around and, you know, kind of eventually, you know, was there so much that they hired me into that group. Into footwear. So
you annoyed them to the point where they gave you
exactly. Yes. And then started making the money. So they kept me. So different incantations. So I was at Nike in different capacities. I was the creative director of Converse for about 5 years. And most recently, this incantation has been an amazing experience with Cole Haan. You know, back to kind of that work for what you believe in idea. You know, we've really kind of transformed the industry in terms of, I think the opportunity and the reason that I was so excited about joining the brand was just watching the way people are working today. You know, I follow all three of you guys, just watching the way that how much we move around, the versatility needed. I think that the background kind of in functionality of product, I get really excited about the idea, and I think it's kind of connected back to the doctor thing of like, how do you help people live an extraordinary life? And I believe in that you can do that through product. So it's kind of.
I think we're also at an interesting time where like, we probably all remember an era where like you were judged by how you dressed on what you did for a living, right? So if like Mike walked into a meeting like this, people would be like, oh, use the service entrance, right? No offense.
No.
But you're like,
many
you're
times on my track bike, I'd be told, go to the delivery side.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Always.
But now we're at this era where it's like, this is now an expression, and this could be the CEO of a major company.
Yes.
You know, and I think Cole Haan is like at the intersection of that because of their heritage of where they came
Yeah, and we've always been the working person's brand.
Yeah.
And I think that's the new evolution of it today and what it is.
Yeah. So I want to get into the next question for all three of you. You mentioned the Frank Ocean story and how that was an experiment. When did the experiment turn into like, wow, this is real now? Like, it's a business now. It's no longer just me experimenting shit out here.
I guess it was just like I launched the website, and the website, at the time did, more sales than I made in the last month of graphic design. And I was like, I was freelancing doing graphics. I mean, I think for probably the first year of the business, I was making vinyl decals for people. I was printing t-shirts for people. I was doing graphics for 3 different brands. I was freelancing for 2 different companies while I was doing Chinatown Market. Like, I was literally like, I will do whatever the hell I have to do so that I can do this, and I think it was probably just at a moment of like, we had a graphic that said, "Thank you, have a nice day," with a rose. And that shirt, just hand over fist, was like our best seller for an entire year, And it's like those little moments like that and like the smiley face were just 2 icons that kind of latched onto the brand early and became these things that like if I made a new color or a new execution or whatever, that it kind of got a lot of attention. And I just started finding like the brand pillars, and it was all based in positivity in a time in the world that was so negative, and right on the heels of Trump getting elected and all these things happening. And it's like, it was a very interesting moment of like having a smiley face being an icon of the brand.
Do you remember a moment where you said like, wow, I don't have to do like freelance graphic design anymore? Or do you still feel like you might have to do that?
I don't like to talk about like money figures, but I think it was like the moment that the company had made more money than I had ever made in a year in like 1 month. And I was just like, I called my dad and I was like, "Dad, like, this is insane. Like, I can't believe this." Like,
showed him a picture
it's not
of
in
your
my bank account, but it's not in my personal bank account, but like, it's just nuts, And it's like, it's just because you're so proud to be able to call your parents and not like, I remember in college, I'd call my dad and be like, "I can't afford to go buy Subway. Can you lend me like $10 or $20?
Yeah.
And so, it's like, I'm grateful to now, like, my dad needed a bathroom recently and I was able to help him make that happen, but it's things like that where it's like, you dream of buying your parents a car one day or one of these things. And I got the chance to take my dad to Japan recently for his birthday, and, he got to go to Wagyu Mafia and, do that whole experience and all this stuff. And it's like, this is the stuff we dream about, Like, all the other glory and all this other shit is cool, but it's like, to be able to see your family, be able to, enjoy that and see it and also be proud of it, because I know that many people are raised with their parents not supporting their stuff. I was lucky enough to have parents who worked in the industry, and while they told me never to work in fashion, like, they were very supportive, And so I'm grateful
you have a team
for
now
that.
Too.
Of course.
How many employees do you have?
I got 4 of them here, but I think we got like 14 people in the office. That's amazing too, right? But yeah, I mean, still, it's insane. The fact that from what I was just piecing together by me doing every graphic and shipping every order to do all these things, to now there's people doing all these things. It's crazy. It's also scary, because the minute you pull your hand off, like, there's so many times where I would leave town and it would just become a playground and do whatever they wanted, And I think it's like, there's the few people who are here today are probably not the guys who did that, But it's, it's the ones who made the choices to step up and to really be there, because my business is not so much of like, here's the path and this is how you do it. It's like, you see how hard I work and you can work your ass off and find your way, or you're probably not going to find your way in that system.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Word of warning though, one time I showed my mom a screenshot of like a number in my bank account that I was super proud of. And she's like, "Oh, does this mean you could pay me back for like high school and college?" Like, legit. And she still to this day is like, "Can you make that like an auto payment every month that you can?" I'm like,
I'm not mad at it, like, get it.
So Jeanne, do you remember, and maybe it hasn't happened yet, but do you remember where you're like, wow, okay, I never have to go look for that part-time job. I never have to fall back on nursing. This is the way now.
Oh, that happened the first year and a half maybe that I did it. And I remember I was telling my husband, I was like, I'm so glad I got fired. I'm so glad that they let me go. Like,
what was that moment? Was it a particular gig or something?
It was, so before that I was working for a marketing company, and you get your weekly paycheck, you get whatever it is that you work for, and that's it. Like, you go, you clock in, you leave, you clock out, whatever. Yep. This was like a continuous 24/7, 9-to-5 type hustle, and it was hard, but I loved it, and I like what Mike said, I wanted to do what I could, so I never had to work for anybody else, because that was amazing. And the high you get from doing what you love is like the best high you could possibly get.
Right.
So I was like, all right, the first year, I would be in my apartment. I would just be by myself. Like I had to force myself to find like a schedule because, as somebody that that you don't work for anybody, you kind of had to discipline yourself to, you have to wake up. You have to wake up to your own paycheck. You have to like email, all these things.
The first few months is cool because you're in your pajamas 24/7, but then like you'd be like, I should get dressed, and pretend I'm working, right?
You had to do what you had to do to kind of like make it work for yourself and make your own schedule. And really, it paid off after. I think when the industry was kind of getting into the whole social media PR marketing for influencers, and the second year we were doing it, we had a really, really big campaign. We were talking about how much money it was, and I was like, wow, this is more money than I could have ever imagined it coming in a year.
In one gig.
Versus working for somebody.
Right.
So, and then years later, he decided to quit his job, and we're like doing this together. So it's such a great thing to share it with somebody like what Mike said with family, and like being able to show my mom like, hey, look, I don't have to be a nurse to be successful. Like there's other ways, there's other paths to success. It's not just this one way, one road type thing. Like it's success over on the other end. How do you choose to get there?
It's not one.
It's not one way.
Absolutely. Scott, do you remember the moment where you were like, doctor, medicine is not for me. I'm going to be in footwear, in design?
The path has been it's rambled so much. Like it's been a very, I wouldn't say organic, just because like the journey's just been very much like, well, that looks like fun and that looks kind of cool. And it's been very much just kind of zigzag around. And even my first job, I lied about the George Armani thing. My first job was at a medical editorial firm in Falls Church, Virginia. When I left school, I found the 20 places that I wanted to work. So at the time, there really weren't computers to speak of. So we would send out slides. So you send out just a slide folio with your resume, with some work and this. And I sent it out to a bunch of, at the time I was really excited about editorial magazines.
Yeah.
And I sent it to Rolling Stone, which I did get an interview for. But the one place that I really loved was this guy in Virginia who was doing just these really cool combinations of typography and image with different artists. And it was just really beautiful, the work that he was doing. I mean, it turns out it's a small firm and basically like above a garage. But he was the only one who wrote me back and was like, if you come on down, the job's yours. And I think I made like 19 grand a year or something like that. And I absolutely despised it. The first project he gave me was typesetting.
Yeah.
The National Endowment for the Arts.
Okay.
And basically their annual report, which was like 600 pages. And we're typesetting in like PageMaker or something like that. And I just worked on it for months and months and months and months, and finally I quit. I sold my car and I flew to Russia. And I went there to go.
You exiled yourself.
I did, and then kind of went this path, and that's when I went there and fell in love with icon painting, and I went there to go study to be an icon painter. I did not, but when I came home, I went back to school to be a painter.
Nice. So you went all
in. So I went for a full year, and that's when I got a call from a friend who was in New York and was like, "Look, you got to go try out for this Giorgio Armani thing." Reluctantly, we should bleep this out. I didn't like the city. So I was like,
you're allowed to not like New York.
Yeah. So, but I literally came in, dropped off my portfolio, and I left right after. I took the bus back to Allentown, Pennsylvania, because I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But they called me that afternoon, and they were like, "We want you to come back in." So I borrowed my dad's suit jacket and pants, and came in for the interview, and I got the job.
That's amazing.
And they were like, "Can you be here next week?" So anyway, so that was the time.
Right.
Where like when I told my parents I wasn't going to be a doctor, and my mom said, "Well, can you make money at that? Like being a graphic designer?"
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's worked out.
Did you learn to love New York eventually?
I do love New York.
Okay, good. You're
You
safe.
can quote me on
Yeah,
it.
you're safe.
Exactly.
So let's now dive into each of your brands. If you had to elevator pitch me what each of your brands represent, go for it. What is Chinatown Market?
I just think it's fun, and it's an open book, and it's the opposite of everything else that I've known in my life. It's like we all love brands, but we never interact with them, and we want to feel like your friend. And it's like buying clothes from your friend, and the community that we try to build is a community that's supportive of creativity, and we want our consumers to feel like they can do it too, and it's like constantly making that a process is a big thing for us.
Right. Do you have I'm going to ask you this later. Okay. I'll save it for later. Jeanne, go ahead. What is Great Layers?
Just being relatable. The thing that I've been posting for so long since I started was just not something that is unattainable. Like, I want people to be able to come to my page and be like relatable to everybody and accessible. So I want people to feel like they're a part of something and not like excluded. And that's the whole brand that I'm trying to convey.
Yeah, I've noticed in your feed, like, you've gone from the image of you to now like the making of the image of you.
Yeah.
And I love all the screwed up stuff that you put up. That's like the no makeup, the outtakes, like, it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Scott.
With Kolhan,
Yeah.
it's helping people to realize their extraordinary lives and doing that through products. So, we're a lifestyle brand, so from bags to outerwear to footwear. And I as I said before, like, I very much believe in that idea of, accompanying you on your journey and not impeding you. I think there's so many brands out there that like everything's great from a style perspective, but it's got to work.
Yeah.
And I think that connection is what makes the brand truly special.
Right. Okay. My next question is a really quick one. I want you to answer as fast as you can. A standard work week is 9 to 5, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's 40-hour a week, right? That's how you get to the 40-hour week work week. How many hours a week do you work, each of you?
Probably like 8 to 7, so whatever that is times 5.
8 to 7 hours?
No, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Times 5.
Times
You actually
5.
take weekends off.
I do take weekends off now,
Beautiful.
But I'm always connected to everything. But yeah, it's just like, no matter what, I'm going to be on my phone, be communicating or talking. But
Right.
yeah, like I will say for the beginning, first year and a half of the business, I'll be there on Saturdays, I'll be there on Sundays. But it's like you talk about balance in life and trying to find a bit of happiness. It's like the only time that I'm not working, I'm usually with my girlfriend and my dog, like sitting on the couch, relaxing, and trying to just find somewhat of like a peace in life that when you go this crazy and you're always working, it's like it can hinder my brain and it can hinder like my just like health in general. And there's a lot of things that I think I sacrifice for that.
Yeah.
So.
Jeanne, how many hours a week do you work?
And I'm always online, like 24/7.
Yeah, it's hard for you to
Yeah,
delineate.
there's like no shutdown. So I think along the way, I've kind of gotten smarter, more well-versed in like self-love and all that stuff. So what I started doing was, since I'm always on 24/7, I'll like pick 1 week like randomly, or like maybe like tomorrow, like randomly I'll be like, okay, for the next 24 hours, like I'll just not go on my phone. Or I haven't posted in 2 days. So something,
Really?
I'll do something like that, yeah.
Wow. I feel like there's always a new post.
There's always something. And like whatever I'm doing, I'm eating, or like I'll go take like, I don't know, like an outfit or walk my dog. Like it's always there. I'm always on. Like I'm always sharing. So it's like.
Wait, so you just went on like a big vacation?
I did.
Or what looked to be a vacation?
It was a vacation.
Was it a vacation?
Promise. Yeah, it was a vacation.
No, but you were covered. It was like full coverage 24/7 of the vacation.
Here's the thing though, like with my job, it's a 24/7 thing, but at the same time, it's like, it's fun work that.
Okay. That's the problem. That's where it's hard to delineate.
Right,
yeah.
right. So there's such a fine line in like knowing when to shut off, because I love it so much. And it's very difficult for me to really put it aside because it's kind of addicting.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, like I'll go to like a trip, like a personal trip. And
like you
it's
did
a
last week,
vacation.
personal
Yeah, like
trip,
I went to Sirius and Caicos with my husband, and I was like, this is a vacation, I'm not gonna answer emails, I'm not gonna, so my out of office was on, but the creating side of the whole business was like still on.
Right.
I couldn't help myself and not like create something.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you're
was
on vacation,
itching for it.
but Barrick's in the ocean with camera equipment on his back, like trying to like get the shot, I'm sure.
That's awesome.
Right? That was what happened, right?
All the waterproof cases.
Yeah.
He does, he actually does.
I love it. Scott, are you a 40-hour week guy, or are you always on too?
Always on. I think we've got to quantify it, probably 50 to 60 hours, but I think we always talk about at work, like we move at the speed of digital, and digital's just fast.
Yeah.
So like it's never stopping. And I also think in a very entrepreneurial environment, I think everybody can relate, like opportunities don't have a timeline. So if it's there, you do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing where like the tools in order to manage, whether it's 60 hours or 80 hours or whatever,
Right.
I think it's just about the tools to kind of stay healthy and combat that, because I just think we've transcended into a new realm. It's not this hour work week anymore. It's just always on. It's just a matter of how you shut it off.
You and I have definitely had Saturday, Sunday tech sessions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Mike, how do you turn off? Like, what are some tips that you use to like definitely unplug? Because you could always be on if you never deliberately do it.
It's a really good question. Yeah, I think like, it's kind of similar to what Jeanne says, like I do love what I do. I love to just make stuff. Like that's why I think doing this brand is so fun, because I'm not, like my last company was all focused on reflectivity and safety and function. And I think that at the end of the day with Chinatown Market, I can go make a sequin puffer jacket and I can go make a regular t-shirt, and it's like that sequin puffer jacket's probably for like the 0.01% of my customer base, and that's to satisfy my weird creativity. And then it's the other stuff that is just normal and accessible.
Right.
And,
But let's say you're home late at night and then you think of an idea. Do you like open up the laptop and start working on it, or are you like, let me save that for 9:30 a.m.?
I like to my girlfriend. I try to keep it at home or like keep it at the office. But yeah, it's just because I think like I used to just at all hours, at all times, but I'll be my note section is just crazy of just like constant spur of ideas.
Yeah.
But I have to find that disconnection because I found I was just burning out in certain places. I was finding like creative walls of just like what the hell am I going to do right now? So. I'm not good at the I wish I could just probably put my phone away for 24 hours or these things, but I start to get like mental anxiety of like emails or
then you're missing out on
you sit on a 15-hour flight and you land in New York and all of a sudden you have 350 emails and I'm just like and how am I going to respond to all these things? They all require creativity, moment, and all these things have to happen on a rapid speed, and you got to constantly come up with new ideas for these big moment projects that are going to come out in a year, and you got to hope that those 5 minutes of creativity was enough to be able to have a big moment, just it's like any of these things.
True,
So
Jeanne, how do you unplug? Sounds like your life's pretty dope though, like to be honest.
I love life.
It's Merrick's life, that's shit. He's got the crap life.
No, he lives his life. He does. He promises.
Say it.
For
Do you
me,
just put away the phone, or do you do other tricks and stuff to really unplug?
probably not really go on social media. And like for the recent trip that we did, let's say I was creating, I wasn't answering emails.
One thing that I want to ask you in particular about is like, how there's like social media fatigue that people talk about?
That's real.
Where it's like when you're on it and not just producing it, but when you're like fielding people's comments and jabs and digs and stuff, like, do you face that often?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think through the years I've gotten very well versed at like how to handle it. Before I would like get back at them, like reply and like, or
block. Do you block?
Block. Now it's just like, say whatever you want. Like you could do whatever you want. I mean, this is a free country. You could whatever. Like you have to like.
It must be tough for you because like when we make product and then put it out and people talk shit about the product, it's one thing. But you're putting yourself out.
That's
so when
really
they talk
difficult.
shit, they're talking. I hate to say it, but like they're talking shit about you.
Me, right? But I think where it all roots is like you gotta be really confident in what you're doing, and you have to really believe that. I guess like being true to what you're creating is important, because if you don't really believe in what you're creating, then you could easily get swayed in what other people say. And if somebody doesn't like it, you could start crying. But like, I mean, not everybody's gonna like you. Like I've learned that, and I think I think this is why like I was put here in this business, like, because I know how to handle criticism pretty well. I don't easily get like shook when somebody says something bad. Like
Always from the beginning?
I can handle it from the beginning.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it was never really an issue for me. But like, let's say, what was your question? Like how to shut down?
Yeah.
Now, for instance, like for Fashion Week, I pick and choose very wisely where I put my energy. So it's like, I'll have like 10 shows and then that's it. If I don't resonate with the brand, I shut down completely. Like I think it came with the years of me creating and me working in this industry to be able to be picky. But I've learned to really filter like where I put my brand in, if we resonate with each other, like with Cole Haan, for instance, like it went so well and everything meshed perfectly because it's such a great brand and like, we all worked well together. But, I just stopped saying yes to everything.
Mm-hmm. You're like curating yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And I want my audience to see that, I'm not just going to say yes to everything as well. Like, I want them to know that, oh, this is what she just, like, the pair of shoes that she just wears, the drink that she just drinks, like, this is her bag. Like, I don't want them to think that, oh, she's just going to, post and get saturated, right?
Okay. Scott, how do you turn off?
It's a little less sexy. I go back to the time of rotary phones. So I think the transition into the digital world, I think there was a time, I was saying to somebody last week, like there was a time I remember, there, of course, there was nothing digital. Like from morning to night, it was just you and outside. So I have that recall of that and the need, I think, to achieve that. Just because I think that's part of it's built into my DNA now. I think, so a lot of the tools, I actually burn out in a job once. So I have that reference point of understanding
your
where the
line.
wall is.
Right.
And a big tool for me is I've always journaled for 20 plus years. So I try to write every morning.
Manually in a book?
I did for probably 10 of those. And now I just write in Word. And I just go, and I'll do it. Sometimes I just time myself and put it on for 30 minutes, and I'll just go. And it really just helps to compartmentalize things and go, well, that goes there, this here, that throw that one away.
That's awesome.
And
I got to try that.
And then it just becomes, and the important stuff just kind of shines out. And that's one way. I meditate a little bit too, and then I'm kind of a gym rat, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Progressing into the now, into the near future, what is the biggest challenge you face now with your business?
I think it's just in, the growth and just having new people, like people who grow with the business and people who probably grow out of the situation that they're in and, just being okay with understanding that not everyone from the beginning of the business will be there in a year, in 5 years, but the people who are here for the long run will be there, and I think it's a hard thing because the first time we had to let someone go from the business, I was torn apart, like my whole mental was just messed up. I was worried about how this person was going to react, what was going to happen, like was it going to affect everyone on the team, was it going to create an entire problem, and the kid just was like, cool. And he just walked away. And I was just like, damn. I just tore myself up for weeks over this. And I defended this person. I wanted them to, all these things. And I just was like, damn, I was wrong. And I was just like, it's just, I think anything in my life has been learned by huge failure and by huge, what the hell were you doing? And I think that was just a big wake-up call, and it's like, owning a business, I, for a very long time, just kind of let things rock and let people do their thing. But I realized, I built this thing. I gotta remember that I did that and that these people are here, obviously, not to just build my dream. They have their own dreams and they're gonna go do their own thing. But if they really wanna do that, they'll put in the work here and then they'll go do that, But a lot of people, I think, lose that sight of that and then start getting almost selfish notions while being there. And so, learned a lot of lessons, I think just a lot of pain points and, just learning how to manage people, which, I'm good at doing my own thing and I did great just doing it myself, but I've learned a lot of hard lessons just trying to now work with other people and also be a leader because it's not easy, and I know that I fuck up a lot, and I make mistakes and just...
But they're looking at you as their leader at the same time.
And I think that's the only thing is I always say to these guys, don't be afraid to fail, because that's everything I've done to get here. So, you have to always be willing to make that failure so that you can get better.
Yep, for sure. Firing is the worst thing.
The worst.
Jeanne, what's the challenges that you face for your business now?
I think it's balancing how brands per se are in the industry now that it's evolved.
Yes.
So
it was an unknown thing. Now it's like a known thing.
Now it's okay, now we kind of get it. Now we know where the money goes and how this works financially. So now there's 20 million pages of paperwork and we got to talk about usage and rights and all this stuff and everything that comes along with creating something together. So just kind of balancing that and balancing where and how I started in the beginning, and marrying that together is the still a challenge. Just still trying to continuously learn the business of creating and staying true to how I started.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a fine line to walk.
It is.
Scott, what's the challenges for Cole Haan?
I think the biggest challenge is continuing to listen and observe the way people live their lives. I think, when I started with the brand, I think one of the most unique things that we've built is, it's pretty exceptional in that, like we talk about, there's the style piece, there's the form and the function piece. And I think our lives are so rapidly evolving and changing, and the way that we move about, the things that we do, et cetera, that I think there's the potential to get lazy and really truly put the work in to do exceptional things and extraordinary things in that observance and that kind of consumer empathy, and really understanding like how people live and what they do. Because that's like, that work is what truly makes it special. When we built this really amazing organism where when we built out our talent, we have designers from the dress and the casual world, but we also have performance and innovation designers who come from that performance space. And that's like, it's like peanut butter and chocolate, but it's also like, oil and, oil and water.
Yeah.
Where it's just like this weird dynamic, but through that mashup and that weird dynamic, you can create really exceptional things.
Yeah.
So I think always keeping that tension between those things to continue that transformation within the industry and do great things for people and serve people in that way.
Right. I think in all of our businesses, as a business, you want to be more efficient and you want to scale, but those are the opposite elements of raw creativity. So it's like, how do you become like streamlined, efficient, productive, but also dope and have fun and be like
and
creative.
confident.
Yeah, and curious.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to start with you for the last question, so we just share it a little bit. What advice do you have for anyone that's trying to break into your industry or make it out there right now?
I will not pretend like I haven't thought about this. A couple things. I think one is work your ass off. Just work, and work. It's okay if you don't know what the exact thing is. Just go do something, and that thing will lead you to the next thing, and to the next thing. And listen to your John Jay when John Jay was talking about the idea that it doesn't have to be perfect. Like you do that and you don't like it, and then you go over here and you figure it out and you zig and you zag. Like that's part of the journey. I think
he said the biggest epidemic right now is young people and their paralysis of failure.
Yep.
They don't want to make a move until they know it's going to be 100%, but it'll never be 100%, so they never make a move.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I also think making sure you connect with some great mentors, even if it's like the not perfect thing, but find somebody who is doing that thing, and that will lead to the next thing. Not like you're looking to flip people, but like just go there, find those people. And I also think empathy, compassion, and respect and love are just massive, massive pieces to that. That it's not about business. It's about how you treat people and the relationships, and ultimately all of this stuff is about connection and how we connect to each other. So that's beautiful. That's where I go.
Amazing answer.
Jeanne, what advice do you have for, I'm sure you get asked this all the time.
Yeah. I always say, kind of go back to your why. I say this a lot on like panels and like talks and whatever, but I think it's so important to go back to your reason of why you started it in the first place. Because like for me, I've been doing this for 8 years and I still lose my way. Sometimes you get caught up in like how it works now and how things are going now.
The mechanics of
right.
Yeah.
So you kind of like, and then I hit a wall and I'm like, oh wait, like, and then I have to go back to my why I started. I think that's really important. And another thing is humility. You have to really, you're never the shit. You're never too smart. You never know enough. Yeah. You can never be. You're always a student. So I'm always still constantly learning, still constantly trying to figure it out. And I think the second that you let go of your humility is like when you stop learning and then you just stop growing.
Yeah, you die. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you die.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echo everything you guys are saying. I think, in reality, it's just keeping your head down, not being afraid to fail, as I said, and, just being willing to put in the work. And I think everyone wants it so instantaneous with the, world of social media and thinking that things come now. And, It's like any of these guys in our office who are really talented. A few of these guys have things they want to build one day, and brands that they want to develop, and things that they want to grow. And I think that I just always encourage them, like, put in the work here, learn everything you can in this business, and be able to put your head down so that you can walk away saying, I tried all these things, I have experience with them, and now I can go do it for myself.
Yeah.
Because the biggest mistake I ever made was getting an investor, being told, go focus on the design, and then I did not worry about the business. And all I did was just design, but I was making really cool shit, but that's all I was making, was really cool shit. I wasn't making really cool sellable shit to run a business. And I think that it's like, I always say to people, you want to go make stuff for yourself, go have a hobby, go do other stuff. But you're not doing that as a business.
Right.
If you want to run a business, be smart and be considerate in what you're going to do and in your approach, because it's easy to go make stuff, but it's very hard to run a business.
Word. All right.
Hey, thanks for listening to this awesome live taping with the inspiring trio of Mike Cherman, Jeanne Gray, and Scott Patt. As always, you can find out more about the show and listen to other episodes at hypebeast.com/radio. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I personally use Anchor FM. Also, if you do me a favor and please leave a comment and rating about the show, it really helps out a lot. Also, if you can tell a friend about the show, that'd be great. Share it on social media. Everything helps a lot to spread the word. We do occasionally answer listener questions on the show, so if you have a question, shoot it over to me on Twitter. I'm at Jeff Staple. The Business of Hype is created in collaboration with Bright Young Things. You can check out their work at byt.nyc. Our director is Daniel Navetta. Our audio engineer is David Rogers-Berry. Our associate producers are Sydney Bacumpra and Christina Hong. This episode was recorded at Sibling Rivalry Studio and on location at the Cole Haan flagship in Soho, New York. I'm Jeff Staple, and you've been listening to The Business of Hype on HYPEBEAST Radio.